Have you ever stopped to wonder why some people seem to turn every setback into a stepping stone, while others are crushed by the smallest failure? Most of us have been taught to fear failure, to avoid it at all costs, and to see it as a sign that we are not enough. But what if everything you have been told about failure is wrong? What if failure is not the enemy, but the most powerful tool you have to rise from average to extraordinary? Imagine for a moment what life would feel like if each disappointment, each mistake, each rejection became a source of energy instead of despair. Imagine harnessing the pain of setbacks to propel yourself forward, faster and stronger than ever before. The fear of failure keeps so many people trapped in mediocrity. It paralyzes your ambition, clouds your judgment, and convinces you that the comfort of staying the same is safer than the risk of growth. Every time you hesitate, every time you let doubt dictate your actions, your potential slips further from your reach. But the truth is brutal and liberating at the same time. Failure is inevitable. It is not a question of if, but when. And those who succeed, those who rise to wealth, influence, and mastery, are not the ones who avoid failure. They are the ones who learn to convert it into fuel. Failure is feedback. Every misstep is a lesson waiting to be discovered. Every disappointment is a signal guiding you toward improvement. When you view failure as punishment, you shrink and retreat. When you view failure as data, insight, and direction, you gain clarity and momentum. The brain is designed to learn from mistakes. Each error, if examined carefully, builds the roadmap to mastery. This is the hidden advantage of those who refuse to fear failure. They extract wisdom from every experience, turning the raw material of mistakes into strategies for success. Imagine the emotional freedom that comes when you no longer see failure as shameful or threatening. Imagine waking up each day with the certainty that no setback can derail you, because every obstacle is an opportunity to grow, to adapt, to become stronger. That freedom fuels courage, and courage fuels action. It allows you to take risks that others avoid, to pursue opportunities that others overlook, and to persist when the world tells you to quit. You begin to understand that the only thing standing between average and fortune is your willingness to embrace failure, analyze it, and use it to accelerate your rise. The reward is extraordinary. When failure becomes fuel, fear loses its grip. Doubt is replaced with strategy, and hesitation gives way to relentless forward motion. You start to feel unstoppable because each obstacle you face now reinforces your growth rather than hindering it. Every time you fall and rise, you build resilience, sharpen your instincts, and strengthen the habits that compound into long-term success. The life you have always imagined is not distant. It is being forged in every challenge, every error, and every bold choice you make to transform failure into energy. By redefining failure, you reclaim control over your trajectory. You stop letting fear dictate your actions and start letting insight guide you. Each setback becomes a stepping stone, every mistake a building block, and each rejection a signal pointing you toward your next breakthrough. This is how ordinary people rise to fortune. This is how you can convert frustration, disappointment, and loss into momentum, power, and unstoppable drive. Every failure you face from this moment on is no longer a wall. It is the fuel that propels you forward. Resilience is not something you are born with. It is something you forge through experience, choice, and relentless commitment. Every time you confront failure and refuse to let it define you, you are strengthening a mental muscle that determines the trajectory of your life. The most successful people do not avoid challenges. They embrace them because each challenge is a chance to grow stronger, wiser, and more capable. Your ability to recover from setbacks, to absorb the lessons embedded in disappointment, and to act with renewed determination is what separates those who remain average from those who rise to fortune. The psychology behind resilience is simple but profound. Your brain interprets challenges as threats or as opportunities, depending on how you train it. When you view failure as a threat, fear tightens its grip, energy drains away, and hesitation grows. When you view failure as information, as a guide pointing you toward improvement, your brain shifts into problem-solving mode. Each setback becomes a rehearsal for mastery, a practice session for the discipline, creativity, and perseverance required to achieve extraordinary results. The emotional energy that once fueled anxiety and doubt now powers focus, strategy, and action. Resilience is built in small, deliberate steps. Each time you analyze a mistake, extract a lesson, and apply it immediately, you are strengthening the neural pathways that make future recovery faster, smarter, and more instinctive. This is how momentum is created. Small recoveries compound over time, forming a psychological foundation that makes you unstoppable. You begin to trust yourself, not blindly, but because you have seen repeatedly that failure does not destroy you. It teaches you, strengthens you, and propels you forward. Confidence, clarity, and courage are not inherited. They are earned through repeated engagement with challenges. Emotionally, developing resilience transforms your relationship with fear and uncertainty. You start to see every obstacle as an invitation rather than a threat. You no longer shrink in the face of rejection, disappointment, or criticism. Instead, you analyze, adjust, and act. This shift changes everything. The anxiety that once held you back dissolves, replaced by purpose, determination, and calm focus. You begin to feel the surge of control that comes from knowing that no external circumstance can stop you because your response to adversity is intentional, practiced, and unstoppable. The compounding effect of resilience is extraordinary. Each recovered failure accelerates your growth, sharpens your judgment, and builds the habits that drive consistent achievement. Your mind becomes a tool of precision, capable of turning mistakes into actionable insights, challenges into opportunities, and setbacks into fuel for extraordinary progress. The longer you practice this approach, the less intimidating failure becomes, and the more powerful your actions grow. You learn to anticipate obstacles, prepare for them, and extract value from them, creating a cycle of improvement that compounds invisibly yet massively over time. By cultivating resilience, you are transforming failure from an enemy into an ally. Each disappointment, error, or setback becomes a source of energy, insight, and momentum. You stop fearing what might go wrong and start focusing on how to respond, adapt, and grow. This mental shift is the engine that drives your rise from average to fortune. Every challenge you face now reinforces your capacity, sharpens your instincts, and propels you closer to the life you are capable of creating. Failure is no longer a barrier. It is the fuel that powers your unstoppable ascent. Every mistake contains the seed of opportunity. The difference between those who remain average and those who rise to fortune is not luck. It is the ability to extract value from every error, every setback, and every failure. When you analyze your missteps with clarity and honesty, you uncover patterns, reveal blind spots, and gain insight that others ignore. Each failure becomes a blueprint for improvement, a strategic advantage that compounds over time. This is how ordinary actions transform into extraordinary results, and how repeated mistakes become the most powerful fuel for growth. Momentum is created through action, not regret. Each time you respond to a failure by adjusting your approach and moving forward, you generate force that propels you closer to your goals. The energy wasted on self, pity, or doubt is redirected into learning, refinement, and execution. The psychological principle is simple. The brain strengthens neural pathways through repetition. When you repeatedly respond to challenges with deliberate, growth-oriented action, resilience becomes automatic decision-making improves and confidence solidifies. Mistakes stop being threats and start being accelerators. Emotionally, transforming mistakes into momentum removes the fear that paralyzes progress. You begin to see failure as neutral information rather than a verdict on your worth. The anxiety that once slowed your progress is replaced by curiosity, strategy, and drive. Each challenge you confront and each lesson you apply reinforces your sense of agency, the understanding that your outcomes are determined not by circumstance, but by your choices, your analysis, and your persistent action. The emotional reward is profound. Freedom from fear, clarity of purpose, and the unstoppable confidence that comes from knowing every setback can be converted into forward motion. Practical application magnifies this effect. Break down each failure into actionable insights. Identify exactly what went wrong, what is within your control, and what can be improved next. Implement changes immediately, no matter how small, because momentum compounds through consistent, deliberate action. Each micro adjustment strengthens your strategy, hones your skills, and prepares you for the next challenge. Over time, the cumulative effect is exponential. The more failures you analyze and leverage, the faster you grow, the stronger your confidence becomes, and the more opportunities you are able to seize. The compounding effect of using mistakes as fuel is invisible but unstoppable. What may feel like a minor correction today becomes a major breakthrough tomorrow. What appears as a small insight gained from a misstep turns into a pattern of mastery that transforms your performance and results. Ordinary effort, when coupled with reflective adaptation, produces extraordinary outcomes. Each failure you encounter becomes a stepping stone, a source of energy, and a strategic advantage, accelerating your ascent from mediocrity to fortune. By turning mistakes into momentum, you are no longer a passive participant in life. You become an active creator, constantly refining, improving, and accelerating toward your goals. Every setback is no longer a threat. Every error is no longer a barrier, and every failure is no longer a reason to quit. Each challenge strengthens your skills, sharpens your strategy, and fuels the relentless drive that distinguishes the average from the extraordinary. When you embrace this process, failure becomes the most powerful engine of growth, the hidden currency of fortune, and the unstoppable force that propels you toward the life you are destined to create. Courage is the bridge that connects failure to fortune. Without it, lessons remain dormant, insights go untested, and momentum stalls. The most successful people understand that courage is not the absence of fear, it is action in the face of fear. Every time you take deliberate action after a setback, every time you move forward despite uncertainty, you are training your mind and body to respond with power rather than paralysis. Courage transforms hesitation into opportunity, doubt into clarity, and fear into fuel. It is the catalyst that converts raw lessons from failure into measurable, unstoppable progress. Fear is a natural reaction, but it only controls you if you allow it to dominate your decisions. When you act courageously, you rewire your brain to associate challenge with growth rather than threat. Each courageous step reinforces neural pathways that make future bold actions easier, faster, and more instinctive. The emotional impact is profound. Confidence rises, anxiety diminishes, and your sense of agency strengthens. You start to feel unstoppable because your actions are no longer dictated by circumstances, but by intention, strategy, and the unwavering knowledge that failure is only temporary. Courage is compounded through repeated action. Small risks taken consistently build a reservoir of mental toughness and adaptability. Each time you embrace discomfort, take initiative, or confront uncertainty, you are building the internal infrastructure necessary for extraordinary achievement. Momentum grows not through isolated acts of bravery, but through daily commitment to acting despite fear. The brain begins to expect resilience, the body adjusts to stress, and the mind cultivates the clarity needed to make decisive, effective moves. Ordinary people see failure as a wall. Courageous people see it as a stepping stone. Emotionally, courage turns frustration into energy. Every hesitation overcome, every risk embraced, every fear confronted adds fuel to your drive. You start to view obstacles not as threats, but as opportunities to demonstrate your strength, sharpen your skills, and accelerate toward your goals. Confidence becomes habitual, decisiveness becomes instinctive, and motivation becomes self-sustaining. Each courageous action compounds on the last, creating a cycle of growth, resilience, and unstoppable momentum that propels you beyond average and into extraordinary territory. Courage is also the multiplier for learning from mistakes. Without it, insights remain theoretical and lessons from failure never translate into results. When you act with courage, you implement changes, test new strategies, and convert knowledge into action. The process of adaptation becomes faster, more precise, and more impactful. Your trajectory accelerates because each courageous step validates learning, reinforces habits, and strengthens your ability to respond effectively to future challenges. What once seemed intimidating now becomes an opportunity to gain leverage, to advance faster, and to build the life you are capable of achieving. By cultivating courage, you convert every failure into fuel and every setback into a launchpad. Fear is no longer a barrier, hesitation no longer a limitation, and doubt no longer a weight. Each courageous choice amplifies your power, accelerates your momentum, and moves you closer to the extraordinary results that define fortune. Courage is not optional, it is the essential force that transforms the raw energy of failure into unstoppable drive, relentless progress, and the life you were destined to create. The final transformation happens when failure, resilience, momentum, and courage converge into a force that drives fortune. This is the moment when ordinary effort becomes extraordinary results, when setbacks become stepping stones, and when every challenge encountered fuels your rise. Successful people do not wait for luck or perfect conditions. They create conditions for success by leveraging every failure as raw material for growth. Each misstep becomes a teacher, each obstacle a guide, and each moment of discomfort an invitation to act, improve, and ascend. Understanding that failure is a tool changes everything. No longer do you shrink at the sight of rejection or mistake. No longer does hesitation steal your opportunities. You begin to anticipate challenges as opportunities to gain insight, build skill, and accelerate your trajectory. Every failure becomes a piece of strategy, a building block of expertise, and a source of energy that fuels relentless forward motion. The life of fortune is not built on perfection. It is built on adaptation, persistence, and the intelligent use of every setback. Emotionally, this alignment is liberating. Anxiety, doubt, and fear lose their grip because you have witnessed the power of deliberate response. Every time you rise after a failure, you reinforce your identity as someone who acts, learns, and grows. Confidence becomes internalized, courage becomes habitual, and resilience becomes instinctive. You no longer wait for the world to approve or for circumstances to align. You create leverage from what others perceive as obstacles, and you convert every challenge into a source of exponential advantage. The compounding effect of this approach is extraordinary. Each lesson learned strengthens decision making, each action taken increases momentum, and each courageous step magnifies capability. Over time, these repeated, deliberate responses produce results far beyond what isolated effort could achieve. The journey from average to fortune is not sudden. It is the cumulative impact of using failure as fuel, resilience as your engine, momentum as your vehicle, and courage as your accelerator. Every day becomes a chance to convert setbacks into advantages and obstacles into opportunities. By the time you fully embrace this mindset, you operate differently from everyone else. You see failure as an ally, fear as a signal, and challenge as a springboard. You respond with strategy, speed, and strength. You stop being limited by what has gone wrong in the past and start being defined by how effectively you use it to shape your future. This is the power that moves ordinary people to extraordinary fortune. The ability to transform every misstep into mastery, every mistake into momentum, and every failure into fuel. The life you desire is waiting, but it requires action, reflection, and courage. By using failure intelligently, cultivating resilience, building momentum from mistakes, and acting courageously, you claim ownership of your trajectory. You no longer drift in mediocrity. You move with purpose, precision, and unstoppable energy. The journey from average to fortune is not about avoiding failure. It is about embracing it, learning from it, and letting it drive you toward the extraordinary results that define a life of mastery, wealth, and fulfillment. When all these elements, failure, resilience, momentum, and courage, come together, you step into a new reality where every setback is transformed into progress, every challenge becomes an opportunity, and every mistake propels you forward. The people who achieve fortune are not immune to failure. They are relentless in their ability to extract value from it. Each disappointment is examined, each lesson internalized, and each action taken with clarity and purpose. This is how ordinary effort multiplies into extraordinary results, and how consistent application of these principles separates the average from the unstoppable. Your mindset becomes the ultimate tool of transformation. When you view failure as fuel rather than punishment, your brain shifts from fear-driven reactions to opportunity. Focused strategies. Neural pathways that once responded with hesitation now operate with decisiveness, insight, and confidence. Every challenge faced strengthens these pathways, making courage automatic, resilience habitual, and adaptation instinctive. The life you once imagined as distant now feels attainable because your daily actions, guided by these principles, compound invisibly but powerfully over time. Emotionally, the impact is profound. Anxiety loses its power, doubt diminishes, and fear no longer dictates your choices. You begin to trust yourself in a way that others rarely experience. Each recovered failure reinforces your identity as someone capable, decisive, and unstoppable. Each courageous act strengthens your confidence, sharpens your focus, and fuels momentum. You no longer wait for perfect circumstances. You act with precision and intent, turning every obstacle into an advantage. The result is a life defined not by circumstance, but by deliberate, consistent, and intelligent action. The compounding effect cannot be overstated. Each lesson learned accelerates your growth. Each adjustment improves your strategy.